other thing that is a really easy, cheap thing that you can do is the aesthetic where you slit cottons and then you do ties on those. And I found a bunch of tutorials that I put in one of the articles on the website that can be useful as a starting point for looking into that. Put another layer underneath, and then you have the color contrast. And you can do that with everything. You could also do it with layered shirts. So you can have a really slit up top layer in black, and you want your top layer to be black because that's what's going to touch the soot. And then you have your colored layer underneath, and then you've got the contrast. And then you can have the top layer be as racy as you want and still be conservative enough in whatever environment that you're in. Students who did that, where they did this, where they like did a series of cutouts across here, and then they actually sewed in a fabric underneath it. So if you didn't want to wear leggings underneath, you could glue it on if you don't want to sew it. Just make sure it's the same level of stretch, or else you'll have a problem. Well, think small, don't think big, think small. Think about doing a section that becomes, like, let's say, okay, you have a bodysuit. If you did, say, just this, some section right here, just like a little thing here. Now it depends, if you're gonna hoop, you have to be considering not being on the hoop line if you're doing body hooping. That is actually a thing to be concerned about if you're doing on body work or if you're doing contact rolls or things like that. You have to make sure that you're not having things sticking up in the parts of your body where it would be relevant. But you could also just do your neckline here, right? You could do some fanciness just through this portion. And even that will jazz it up. I am snobby about my rhinestones. Oh, that's not bad. That's not bad. I mean, I've used almost exclusively Swarovskis because, I mean, you may not be able to get a Swarovski in that size, but I've used almost exclusively Swarovskis because they have more refraction, and I think it does make a difference especially at a distance. The further back you are, the more you want it to be able to bling. But you know, as glitter girl, I have a reputation to maintain. You do not have to start with the top end. Well, that's not how I would do the burn test. I would hold it sideways like this, stick it to your finger like this, stick it on your finger like this, then hold your finger up, and then you're gonna let the flame come up the side like that. And you count to 3. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000. Are you ever gonna have fire on you longer than that? Probably not. You can start out and do a costume and then make another one. This is like the method of upcycling yoga pants is one of the cheapest possible ways to get high-end costumes with very little money. You buy your like $15, $20 yoga pants that work because they're the right blend, and then you just add cool stuff on top of it. You can do this. You can totally do this. You can. So if you have a strip of whatever cool embellishment, you can put it around your neckline, around part of your armpit. I wouldn't go all the way underneath your armpit because that can be feeling gross. And then you could put like a thing that comes down around your waist if you wanted, and then you could do a line down the side or around the cuff at the bottom. All of those are really simple ways to accentuate the costume with very little money and very little time. Next costume. So I would start researching immediately, and I would look up hot fix rhinestone patches or stickers on Amazon. There are tons and tons and tons of them. You don't want adhesive ones, you want hot fix ones. And although you could do not hot fix and you could just do the kind that you're supposed to set, and then you could glue them on with E6000 if you're willing to do that. But you have to glue each one individually. If you hot fix it, what you can do is you can lay them all down. So you could lay this down, lay down the pieces, and then put the iron on it, and it'll do all of the things that are under the iron at once. And if you keep the whole thing flat the whole time and you don't move it, then it's much easier to do than, you know, each one individually. Get them in a gross, and I would get them in size 20 SS as a starting point. It depends on what you're using as your heat source. I actually had a pen that was a heat press pen that would heat up one rhinestone at a time. That's what I did. So on that one dress, so this is just a pair of pants that I wanted to have a good Okay, so these are size 10 rhinestones. I think they're 10, they may be 12, they may be 12 SS. And I think it was like a gross for each leg. What I did was I made a template instead of measuring out each one. I made a template with paper, and then I put the paper down, positioned the rhinestones, pulled up the paper for that section, so maybe it was a section like this big, and then zhink, iron it. This is maybe even a big section. You may only want to do 5 stones at a time. And then I went up the leg. Now, this is much less work than doing every single, like doing it all the way down the leg, and it costs a lot less too. And then you'll notice, even those, I mean, like these are super tiny. These are very, 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 very small. But there's so much light for so little effort. That's how I did that part. And then, so this is the dress I was talking about. So to give myself cleavage line bling, I did the same thing, just in a line, evenly spaced. And then I did, this is the below my boobs section here, which you can't see because the camera's too high. So this goes right below, this is right under my boobs. And this is meant to be the, this is just like little flowers that I made out of 5 of these teardrop ones with a center round one. And no, I just like laid them out as I went, and I eyeballed it all. And then I eyeballed this little butterfly at the end. And then what I did for this part down at the bottom, some of these have come off, but I did 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1, then 2, then 1. And I did measure them out. But I spent way more in rhinestones than I did on the dress, because I think the dress was only like $25. I think the rhinestones were like maybe less than 50, but quite possibly 50. But those are all Swarovskis. And also, just to be clear, that dress has been through the wash many, 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 many times, and been through many, many, many performances. And that outfit is 12 years old, 11 years old, something like that. And that's one of the reasons I like Hot Fix, is because Hot Fix can go through the laundry. So I don't know how E6000 holds up in the laundry. I've never actually used E6000 for anything and put it in the laundry. Yeah, so I just don't know. I think that rhinestones are a super fun way to do it. I think the Cricut thing is also super fun and probably easier than rhinestones if you have a Cricut, or if you have access to a Cricut. It's actually much cheaper to do because you can get a roll of silver vinyl stuff that's like $15. So if you know somebody with a Cricut, then it's really easy. You buy a piece of artwork, you give them the vinyl, and you say, hey, please cut these at this size. Boom, done. Super easy. You don't even have to buy a piece of artwork if you have one. 11.5 by 11.5. Well, it depends on what Cricut they have. They have other ones. Yeah, but you just take an 11.5 piece and you put it next to an 11.5 piece and you put it next to an, you just like, although I would not plan them to be next to each other. I would plan a space in between. So maybe you do a strip and then a shape, and then a strip and then a shape. And that way, because then you don't have to worry about it lining up perfectly, or having the illusion of it lining up perfectly either. Little things that you don't think about when you start, but then you're like, oh, I wish I'd known that worked that way.